and I have horses and all these other things, and I have 29 cars. Wow. And even the garages here aren't big enough for all my cars.
He built an empire valued at millions, with his personal net worth estimated at a cool $9 million. But behind the confident smile and the expert haggling, a storm was brewing that threatened to tear it all down, and the person leading the charge was the last one anyone would have expected: his own mother, Joanne Harrison. The drama exploded into the public eye with a lawsuit that was just brutal. According to court filings that shook the fan base, Joanne sued her own son over the ownership of the very pawn shop that made them famous. The complaint alleged a breach of contract and painted a devastating picture. Joanne claimed that back in the early 2000s, while she was hospitalized and had just awoken from a coma, Rick had her sign over her 51% interest in the pawn shop to him. Think about that for a second. She claimed she was in no condition to understand what she was doing, effectively handing over control of the family's crown jewel. It was a bombshell allegation of manipulation at her most vulnerable moment. But it didn't stop there. After Richard the Old Man Harrison passed away in 2018, Joanne was supposed to inherit his 49% share of the business.
People are remembering the man who gave people another reason to visit Las Vegas. Of course, we're talking about Richard the Old Man Harrison. He died today. He had been battling Parkinson's disease.
However, she alleged that Rick never gave her a complete accounting of the business's finances. She claimed she was kept in the dark about where the money was going, specifically questioning more than $500,000 worth of cash and silver that her late husband had accumulated. Rick's defense was that his 81-year-old mother was being manipulated by others for their own gain, but the damage was done. The headlines were everywhere, and the image of the tight-knit, bickering but loving family from TV was shattered. The lawsuit sought unspecified damages and, most critically, a court order to prevent Rick from touching any funds that belonged to Joanne. His entire $9 million fortune was on the line. The situation escalated even further when Joanne filed for a temporary restraining order against Rick. She claimed that the regular payments she had been receiving from the business, a hefty $25,000 at a time, had suddenly stopped in 2020. Now, at 81 years old and with health issues requiring around-the-clock care that cost up to $15,000 a month, she was fighting to get that allowance reinstated. The restraining order was designed to freeze Rick's ability to sell or transfer assets. It's wild to imagine finding out your own mother is taking this kind of action against you through news reports, which is exactly what Rick claimed happened. This wasn't just a business dispute, it was a deeply personal war being fought in public, adding unimaginable stress to Rick's life.
I started buying and selling stuff, basically educated myself. And then I'd always been buying and selling stuff. My dad had a little coin shop, and I wanted a pawn shop.
The pressure was mounting from inside his own family, but it was just the beginning of the chaos. Big hosses, big problems. While Rick was fighting a legal war with his own mother, the supporting cast of his empire seemed to be in a competition to see who could cause the biggest headache. It was a non-stop circus of controversy that kept the Harrison name in the headlines for all the wrong reasons. At the center of it was Austin Chumlee Russell, the show's lovable goofball whose real life was turning into a legal nightmare. In 2016, things got incredibly serious. Cops raided Chumlee's home as part of an investigation into serious accusations of misconduct made against him by a woman. During that raid, police didn't just find a little bit of trouble, they found a mountain of it. Officers reported discovering a variety of controlled substances, and get this, at least one firearm. Chumlee was arrested and faced a staggering 20 felony charges. While the most serious allegations against him were eventually dropped, he couldn't escape the other discoveries. The laundry list of items seized by police was shocking, including illicit materials and a total of 12 guns, 8 of which were unregistered. To avoid a long prison sentence, Chumlee had to make a deal. He pleaded guilty to a felony weapons charge and a gross misdemeanor for attempted substance possession. The lovable clown from TV was now a convicted felon, a fact that hung over the show like a dark cloud. And then there was Rick's son, Corey Big Hoss Harrison. Known for his ambition to one day take over the shop, Corey had his own share of embarrassing public incidents.
Pawn Star's Chumlee is getting by with no jail time after his arrest for drug and gun possession. And the district attorney is saying his punishment was still too harsh. 13 Action News reporter Parker Collins found out why.
On one occasion during a motorcycle tour, he reportedly had way too much to drink at a bar, leading to some truly wild behavior that got him kicked out. He later apologized, but the damage to his reputation lingered. But his troubles didn't end with a rowdy night out.
It's a little intimidating walking down the aisle and you see all the people. I mean, you almost feel like a professional wrestler or something.
In 2021, Corey was back in the news after renting an RV for a trip and allegedly returning it completely wrecked. The owner claimed the damage would cost up to $30,000 to repair and that the vehicle's interior was a disaster zone. He even filed a police report after claiming Corey refused to pay for the damages. It was another unnecessary scandal that Rick had to manage. It wasn't just the main cast either. The show's credibility, which was built on the knowledge of its experts, took a massive hit. One vintage toy expert, Johnny Jimenez Jr., was involved in a domestic incident that was caught on camera.
A man best known as the toy expert on Pawn Stars is facing a domestic violence charge following an incident outside a restaurant last month.
Another expert who specialized in autographs famously misidentified a signature on a script from The Godfather, making viewers question just how expert these specialists really were. But the biggest blow came when Drew Max, a sports memorabilia expert, was accused of fraud for authenticating fake sports items that were later sold at auction. Buyers who lost money sued him, claiming he used his Pawn Stars fame to scam them. One by one, the pillars holding up the show's reputation were crumbling. With his family and colleagues in turmoil, the very foundation of the show itself began to crack. Is it real or is it scripted? With all the off-screen drama, it's no surprise that the on-screen magic of Pawn Stars started to fade. In the beginning, the show's charm was its authenticity. It felt like you were a fly on the wall in a real functioning pawn shop, learning about history and watching genuine negotiations.
High retail. A really fancy gallery, I don't see getting that much. I think I might be able to get 6, but that's after I frame it, pay someone to sell it, everything else. So I'm thinking $2,500.
But as the seasons dragged on, something changed. The show began to feel less like a documentary and more like a heavily produced reality series. And the fans noticed everything. Reports started to surface that the sellers and their items were being pre-screened and appraised before the cameras even started rolling. That spontaneous, you never know what's going to come through that door feeling was gone. The organic, often funny arguments between Rick, the old man, Corey, and Chumlee started to feel forced and manufactured. The focus shifted from the fascinating history of the items to staged family drama. It felt like the show was chasing the formula of other reality hits, becoming more Keeping Up with the Harrisons than a show about pawning. The characters themselves became caricatures of who they once were. Rick was the perpetually stern boss, Corey was the distracted son, and Chumlee was the comic relief, a role that became harder to watch given his serious legal issues in the real world. The authenticity that had drawn in millions of viewers was replaced by a polished but hollow imitation. Hoping to capitalize on the show's fame, Rick made a big business move by launching Pawn Plaza.
New tonight, Pawn Plaza has announced its first 3 tenants ahead of its opening this summer. They include Rick's Rollin' Smoke Barbecue and Tavern and Rita's Italian Ice.
A retail center built from shipping containers right next to the main shop. It was meant to be a bustling hub of restaurants and unique stores, leveraging the thousands of tourists who visited the pawn shop daily. The idea was solid, but the execution was a disaster. The venture turned out to be a massive failure. Several businesses closed their doors, citing a lack of foot traffic. The owners complained that Rick hadn't provided enough marketing support, believing the Pawn Star's name alone would be enough to bring in customers. When the crowds never materialized, many shop owners blamed Rick, leading to more financial losses and another string of lawsuits for him to deal with. Another scandal that rocked the show involved an employee named Olivia Black. She joined the shop in 2012 and quickly became a fan favorite. But after just a short run, she was suddenly fired. It was later revealed that the producers had discovered she had posed for some adult-themed photos before her time on the show. The decision to fire her sparked a huge backlash from fans, who saw it as an unfair and hypocritical move. It was another moment that made the show's producers seem out of touch and further tarnished the brand. Every one of these events chipped away at the empire Rick had built, turning his dream job into a high-stakes balancing act. The public scandals were one thing, but a quiet mystery involving a melted coin collection raised even bigger questions. The melted coins mystery. When you step back and look at the whole picture, it all starts to feel like a mystery. You have to wonder, is the Rick Harrison we see on TV even the real person? Or is he just a character he has to play, a man trapped by the very fame he created? Take the strange case of the stolen coin collection. In 2014, a man claimed his niece had stolen his precious coin collection, valued at around $50,000, and sold it to the gold and silver pawn shop for a fraction of its worth.
A man in Texas returned home from vacation earlier this month to find hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of rare coins and bills stolen from his home. They were found Thursday in Jackson by police.
When he reported the theft and the police contacted the shop, the coins were already gone. A spokesperson for the store said the coins might have been melted down or sold off, admitting they were now unidentifiable. The shop insisted they did nothing illegal, but for many viewers, it just added to a growing pile of suspicion. This is where it gets really interesting for anyone trying to figure out the truth. Does a story like this happen overnight? Does a family empire built over decades just crumble because of a few bad years? Or are we missing a key detail here? The thing is, we see these people on our screens and we feel like we know them. We watched Rick's business grow from a local Las Vegas spot into a global phenomenon. He was the smart, no-nonsense guy who could tell you the history of a Civil War sword or a vintage guitar. But then, layer by layer, the scandals peel back that image. First, you have the heartbreaking lawsuit with his own mother. Then the endless legal troubles of his co-stars. Then the accusations from business partners and the growing sense that the show itself isn't real anymore. You start to see a pattern of chaos, and you have to ask yourself, how does one person handle all of that? The transformation we see in Rick Harrison today at 59, that tired, pressured look, might be the most authentic thing about him we've seen in years. It's the look of a man who has been through a war on all fronts, in his family, in his business, and in the court of public opinion. Maybe the biggest lesson from Pawn Stars isn't about the value of an old antique. Maybe it's about the incredible price of fame and what happens when a reality show gets a little too real. So, is Rick Harrison a shrewd businessman pushed to the limit or the architect of his own troubled empire? Like and subscribe for more untold stories.